Okay guys, I'm going to talk about two-column note-taking today. This is a strategy that you need to use during high school and college and all kinds of times when you're not provided with a specific, outline of questions for something that you have to come to read. And so we're going to learn this strategy with this slavery packet that is located right here on our Moodle page. And so we're going to go ahead and get that open. And you're going to go ahead and save that onto your Z drive so that you can do some highlighting. So I'm going to click this save button and I'm going to put it in my Z drive, which you should be doing, and you should have something called history. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and save it. Then I need to make sure that I'm actually using that file and not the pop-up that's in front of me. So I'm clicking on that. Okay, and now it comes into this type of view. And if yours won't let you alter, remember that you need to right-click on it and open it in Foxit Reader. But let's assume that you are there and that you can do that. Okay? Taking two-column notes is a great way to outline a chapter. Okay? So we're going to look at a few things when we come to a text, and we're going to do that. Number one, we're definitely going to take note of some of the major things that the text is telling us to highlight or focus. Okay? We've got a large headline right here. It tells us that we're going to learn about the problems that many reformers saw in American society in the mid-19th century and their efforts to solve them. We need to understand the impact of the reform movements such as abolition and women's rights in American history. Look over here, it's telling us the major terms and names that we should take note of in a chapter. So all of these things are cues to us that we should definitely be understanding and knowing these major concepts when we go to read this text. The first thing I would recommend is that you read the page or the paragraph rather than just trying to read it and do this strategy at the same time. So first of all, I'm going to show you that you need to have a paper set up. You can use a line sheet. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. You can use a line sheet of paper, but so that you can see what I'm doing, I've created a two-column notes kind of line sheet of paper from a computer program. So you can do this way with making a table, or you can just take a line sheet of paper and kind of draw what I have here on your note paper. So basically on the left side we're going to have the concept or person or vocabulary, and then on the right side we're going to have some notes about it. Okay? So that's the format that I'm going to use for my strategy. And so I'm going to read this one American story to myself right now. Okay, so I've read this whole little situation here, and now I've got to ask myself, what's the main idea here? What was the purpose of giving me this person's personal story? And so I'm going to go to my note sheet, and I am going to put him there. And I'm going to take my highlighter . So he is James. So what I want to do is kind of use my highlighting tool to give me a little bit of information. Obviously this guy, okay, so, and then obviously his issue is that he is fighting for free rights. He doesn't want to be returned to Africa. He has lived in the States his entire life, and then the other issue is that he wants to oppose slavery. And so really he's just got a lot going on here, okay? So he says, I have dwelt until I'm nearly 60 years of age. I'm from an educated family, yet some say I am still an African, a continent 3,000 miles away. So it's like, you've stolen this from me, and now you say I don't belong here, and he disagrees. So I'm going to go ahead to my note sheet, and I am going to go ahead and kind of fill in what I just said. So that is James Baldwin. Just double checking that to make sure. Nope, James Fortin. Okay, and then over here my notes are going to be, that basically the purpose of reading that was to understand that blacks were now invested in living in the U.S. and did not belong in Africa and were fighting for rights as U.S. citizens. And this is obviously a debate over this issue. Okay, so there I've made some notes. Okay, and I can obviously pull that up so that those match. Okay, so I've done that. Now I'm going to go on into my reading. Now that I get into the actual meat of the text, I'm going to take a look at this title that says, A Spiritual Awakening Inspires Reform. And I'm going to kind of look for this main idea about what I'm supposed to be reading about so that I know what to take notes on. Many of these movements had their roots in a spiritual awakening that swept the nation after 1790. People affected by these movements began to emphasize individual responsibility for seeking salvation and insisted that people could improve themselves and society. And so we want to kind of know, what is this spiritual awakening? And then we have another one called the Second Great Awakening. So I'm going to go to my notes. Okay, now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take some notes. Okay, the religious attitudes were closely linked to the ideas of Jacksonian democracy that stressed the importance and power of the common person. Okay, so we've got religious sentiment happening here, and so we've got a lot going on with this sort of religious revival. Okay, so this is kind of pushing this abolitionist movement. Okay, it began to emphasize individual responsibility. People could improve themselves and society. Okay, so okay, so now I'm going to look at the Second Great Awakening. Was a widespread movement to awaken religious sentiments. And then we have these preachers. The primary form for their message was some impassioned preaching, lots of revival meetings. And it says in 1800, 1 in 15 Americans belonged to a church, but by 1850 the number was at 6. So lots of people were kind of getting religious, it sounds like. That's what I'm reading here. So now I've moved on there. Okay, now when I see things on a textbook page like this think through history right here, I really want to pay attention to that, because that's asking some questions that should guide my 2-column notes as I'm reading. I also don't want to skip out on some of these types of things over here that might be helpful for my note taking as well, because this book really goes into some great depth. Okay, now it tells us here there were some groups that did not like this revivalism. And so I'm going to assume that's the Unitarians and Transcendentalists, and so now my notes are going to mimic that. My next note is going to be on the Unitarian and Transcendentalists. And so I'm going to read about that and take those notes. And essentially this is the format that I am going to follow. Now, if I see something in bold, I am most certainly going to make a notation of that in my 2-column notes as I go through the chapter. Okay? The idea would be that you would come to the end of the chapter and have obviously a very nice set of notes to accompany it, but also then that you feel like you could answer these section assessment type questions, because it really forces you to have to focus in and think about the text. Okay, so that is the charge. I hope you will take heavy advantage of this. For this particular assignment, I will allow the use of the 2-column notes on your quiz over these chapters, and that quiz will be Monday. Best of luck. Thank you.